So what we'll do now is move on to our third session. The final project we're going to hear about is collaborative models of care, preserving Australian First Nations digital cultural heritage. And this project was the winner of the International Council on Archives Award for collaboration and cooperation at the Digital Preservation Awards this year in Ghent in September. So again, we'll see a short video about the project, and then we'll welcome Beck and Mel to tell us some more about collaborative models of care and why it's important for the communities they're working with and what they're planning next. So thanks, Paul. Could we have a look at that video?
Collaborative models of care. This project was designed to provide non-First Nations digital preservation professionals, such as myself, with a best practice blueprint for working with Australian First Nations communities to preserve their digital cultural heritage. The trip we undertook as part of this project was designed as a pilot for future iterations. Digital cultural assets are often overlooked when people think about Australian First Nations cultural materials, making them a highly vulnerable form of cultural heritage. For this pilot trip, we worked with two art centres, Bulla Bulla and Anandiliaqua Art Centre. Here is Mel talking about the importance of this work at Bulla Bulla.
Hi, my name is Mel and I'm the Executive Director here at Bulla Bulla Arts, and we're located in Ramingining and Arnhem Land. And I just wanted to express how grateful we are for Beck's help in digitalising all of our old images, history and life and Yolngu life. It's such a meaningful thing for this town and for Yolngu to see photos of how life used to be, to see photos of people that they love, to connect with old stories and to be part of looking at the history that's built this community, to look back to see where they are today.
It was really important to us that this project was First Nations led, and to assist with this, my First Nations colleague, Kobe Edgar, came onto the project as a cultural conduit, there to ensure that I was cognizant of cultural protocols and to guide me through my time in community. As the archive was being digitised, we also worked with Art Centre staff to implement a number of policies and procedures around digital asset management, including in relation to storage and enrichment of metadata by the community over time. We also worked with staff and volunteers at both art centres to undertake DPC RAM assessments, introducing the community to digital preservation principles in a collaborative manner while highlighting the progress we had made collectively towards improving their digital preservation maturity. Following a process of review and refinement in consultation with representatives from both art centres, we have already begun the process of using the pilot to plan future iterations of this project. We believe a collaborative First Nations-led model for digital preservation such as this is the most sustainable and respectful method for everyone moving forward.
Thank you. Thank you for that little video. And now I'd like to hand over to Beck and Mel to give us some more information about their project. Thank you, Beck and Mel.
Thanks, Robin. Gosh, that seems like a while ago that we put that video together. As Robin said, my name is Beck and I'm coming to you from Gadigal land in Sydney. Unfortunately, my First Nations collaborator, Kobe, couldn't join us today. She had a prior engagement, but thankfully we have the wonderful Mel from Bulla Bulla Art Centre who was able to join us. So at its core, this project is kind of about two things. It was about providing a respectful and First Nations-led model for non-First Nations digital preservation professionals, such as myself, to offer skills and expertise to some of our First Nations communities. We are focusing at the moment on art centres, just because they are the people who have been coming to us, but of course art centres are just one sort of hub within a community, and we know that a lot of the organisations within communities have digital assets that sort of interrelate, and so we're hoping in the future that we'll be able to sort of expand beyond art centres. And then the second thing is supporting and empowering our the First Nations communities to preserve their own digital materials. So the non-First Nations staff coming in and sort of providing expertise. It needs to be something that is actually sort of First Nations led and can continue to be sort of First Nations owned. So Mel, I was wondering if you could just briefly introduce yourself and sort of give a bit of context to Bulla Bulla.
Hi everyone, my name's Mel George and I'm here on the Yolngu Nation in Ramingining Arnhem Land. And like Bulla Bulla Arts, we're one of 2 locally owned and operated places in this remote Aboriginal community. Most places are federal or state funded. So this is a really important place because it is led by the people of this community. And our primary sort of thing that we do here is we create artwork. Yolngu create artwork and we help facilitate the sale of that artwork. However, there's a really strong cultural arm that goes along with this business, which is sort of the preservation and maintaining culture. You know, their lives are a little bit difficult here and they don't always have the resources to keep photos safe. We've got some of the same issues that other people have raised with cyclones, electricity going out, all of those sort of issues. So the Art Centre is also like a very important cultural hub and normally the first place where people look to when they want to find out information about maybe someone who's passed away or photos to celebrate, or maybe if we might have videos of old ceremonies. So yeah, that's what we do here. So this project for us was actually like so important because all of our stuff was really rapidly disintegrating and I felt a responsibility to help maintain that, and I didn't even really know where to start. And probably the wrong crowd to say this, but wow, that's some nerdy stuff that you guys talk about, and we need it. You know, we need you to help places like us keep this place, keep this culture and keep these really important, significant, uniquely Australian things alive. So yeah, having Beck come out and for our artists and people in the community to see old pictures of people who have passed away that they have not seen for like 30 or 40 years is, I mean, it's invaluable. And now we've got them and we've saved them. Now I feel yeah, really lucky.
And so Mel, you had originally, when you came to Kobe and asked if she knew anyone who could do any sort of digital preservation work, you had already identified that kind of digitization of the assets and kind of bitstream level preservation of that content was something that was.
Ooh, Beck, you might have frozen, but maybe just for me. What was the last bit of that?
Sorry, Beck, your audio is frozen.
How about I take my video off? Is that any better?
Might be worth a try. Yes, that sounds good. Thanks.
All right.
Oh, it's broken up
The
again.
digitization.
Yeah, Beck,
still going?
a bit of trouble with you. Yeah, but I think I know what you're asking me, which is like, you know, someone like, yes, Kobe, who is one of Beck's partners, is yes, I saw her at the Gama Festival. Actually, this is how these bush things work. So just sitting out in the middle of nowhere with this amazing festival happening, and ran into Kobe and said, yeah, I have a real need for this. You don't happen to know anyone? And she said, oh yes, I do know someone. And she walked away from the conversation, and about 2 minutes later a philanthropist walked into our booth and said to me, do you have any projects? And I said, oh, you wouldn't believe this, but I'd have a perfect one. And this is how these things were born. So, but you know, like, I don't have skills. People in this community don't have skills. I mean, a lot of people here are sadly, you know, they're not so great with like reading and writing, but they know stories and they know these people. So it was also sort of an opportunity for Beck to come and teach Yolngu how to scan, how to label, like how to do this project so that we can keep it going, because, you know, we're in a world now where everybody here is taking digital things. So not only there's this preservation, but there's actually a pathway forward for someone like myself who's going to leave one day to pass on to the next person. This is where we need to start storing these things. Beck went through the RAM assessment. She kept talking about this RAM assessment. You know, I don't know what that acronym is, just like you wouldn't know some of our funny acronyms in our world. And that actually was just the best little thing that we did, because not only did it give me an understanding, it means I can pass on to future people how they can keep this going, because it's not just a one-time thing, of course, but also we are trying to sort of seek more funding to be able to do this. And it also means that I'm in a network of art centres. There's about 85 around Australia, and I can show them that these kinds of tools exist, because people that are coming into things like my role, like we're clueless, like we don't know. We're doing a lot of other different things. So yeah, there's like I said before, I'll just reiterate, we need you. We need this. I don't know if I answered it, Beck, but I made it up. I made up what you were asking me. Oh,
Thanks, Mel. That's
again.
fantastic. Sorry, Beck, try again.
Very annoying when you're in a capital city and the Wi-Fi is not working.
We can hear you now.
Okay, brill. Thank you, Mel. That was absolutely perfect. And my question was going to be about the RAM assessment and kind of the way that over the weeks that we were in community, we kind of stepped through all of the concepts of digital preservation. And of course, you were very sort of familiar with the concepts, but not necessarily the sort of specific terminology that we would be using, or some of the sort of solutions that we were able to kind of talk through as options. And so being able to have those conversations over those weeks while we were digitizing the content meant that by the time we got to the end of the process, we were able to sit down and do the RAM together, and you were able to completely identify exactly what state of digital preservation maturity the Art Centre was in and what you want the next steps to be in terms of where you need to put funding towards, or like if we do, which we intend to, because it was a big part of the project, like have ongoing collaborations and sort of a continued relationship with the Art Centre, like what our next steps together would be in terms of upskilling staff and volunteers and the community. So you said it perfectly. Thank you.
Thanks, Beck. And Mel, that's really fascinating and really interesting. And Mel, you know, when you say there's a network of 85 art centres around Australia, obviously, you know, we're really excited about Beck being able to take out the DPC RAM, which stands for Rapid Assessment Model, actually, and take out RAM. And
Everybody knows
really
that. Everybody knows that. Come on.
It'd be wonderful if that could be introduced to more of those 85 art centres, because I'm sure it would, if it's benefited you guys, hopefully it would benefit them as well.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Sometimes when you're in these jobs, you don't even really know where to start. That tool is a really good tool.
Well, great. We think so. Sorry, Beck.
Oh, I was just going to say, in terms of next steps, we have applied for some more grant funding to continue the digitisation and sort of take some of those sort of RAM assessment steps that we had identified as the ones that were most important forward. And we had originally proposed the project as just the initial 4 weeks, I think, that we spent in community and with Mel, and through that process realised that actually as a pilot for this sort of collaborative model, it can't just be the one-off trip, and it needs to actually, like, there's quite a few more stages that we need to go through to have a full and complete pilot. So we're looking into what those next steps are, and in the meantime we've had a couple of other art centres reach out to us, and sort of, I think because of the Digital Preservation Awards, they were aware of the work that we had been doing with Bulla Bulla, and are interested in being part of future iterations of the project. But we just want to make sure that we get this sort of pilot really steady, and so that it can be continued into the future.
Well, that's great to hear, Beck. We're really pleased to hear that the DP Awards have been have an opportunity to promote your work and hopefully take it forward. Thank you for that. That is fantastic. I don't know if anyone has any last minute questions for Beck or Mel while we're online. Jenny has a question.
Hi there, Beck. I have a million questions for you, but I'm going to keep it to a couple. Do you think you would extend from art galleries to perhaps knowledge centres as well in some of these communities? Because they're not, they are sometimes separate.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, as I mentioned, I think we've sort of started with art centres just because it was people like Mel who've been reaching out to us, but absolutely we realised that even just in the content that we were digitising for the Bulla Bulla archive, like there's images of country in there that the rangers would be interested in, and like it's all very interconnected. It's just about preserving knowledge and sharing that within community. So yeah, absolutely. I think it needs to be a lot larger than just art centres.
Cool. So you'll need more support.
Oh yeah, if anyone's interested.
Give you a call up.
Yeah. Also in your in the article that was on the DPC website, you spoke about the Milingimbi dams, I think.
Yeah.
Digital asset management system. Are you able to talk about that they put that together themselves?
Yeah, so we didn't actually end up being able to collaborate with Anandili Aqua because the days before we were about to fly into community, there was a cyclone, and so they weren't able to host us. So we ended up having some conversations through Mel at Bulla Bulla with the Milingimbi mob, and we're hoping that as the next sort of community that we work with, just because there's so many ties.
Right. Thank you.
Community that we work with.
Yeah. Sorry.
Robin. Oh, Jenny, I was going to say for other people, like they have this amazing database that's really.
Yeah, I'll hand over to Mel. There we go.
But they have something that's really accessible. I mean, that's one thing that we need to sort of work on is we've digitalised it, but how does the community actually get to access it?
Yeah.
And so the Milingimbi Art Centre, which is a little island up in Arnhem Land, 1,000 people, I'm sure you've all heard of it. They have this, they have a dedicated person in their community to run that database. So it really works because they're a very historical place up in Arnhem Land because it was one of where the first missions there. So they have a bit of a different history within that community. But yeah, so that database is pretty incredible for the locals to utilise and use it. And that's who's using it mostly. Yeah, it's a great resource.
Fantastic. Thank you.
And I think that's... Oh, sorry, Jenny.
Sorry, I did persuade some conservators to come to this today. So you did talk about this isn't about digital preservation, but conservation from First Nations eyes. Could you just I don't know, so one sentence about that, Beck? First Nations-led conservation.
Yeah, so I'm the audio still working. Yep. So I am an ex-conservator, and as someone who was sort of taught a very museological, non-First Nations approach to conservation, when then working with First Nations content and communities, it felt very uncomfortable, so that is part of why I really wanted to move away from a model where First Nations content, whether that's digital or otherwise, and community members are required to come into large organisations and museums and art galleries in order to preserve that content, and that is the place where it is held. I actually think it needs to be held within community, and that needs to be that's why we need to work with and support our First Nations colleagues and communities to hold that content within community themselves. And so I've sort of brought that methodology across from conservation to digital preservation, because I think it's still very relevant across both. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Beck. That is fantastic. I'm sorry, but we're running out of time because this has been a fantastic discussion. So thank you to everyone who's joined us here today. I'd particularly like to thank Taputu, Nick, Beck and Mel for speaking with us today and to congratulate them on their achievement in this year's Global Digital Preservation Awards. It's fantastic to see you win these and have these awards, and we really hope it benefits your projects into the future.